In search of food, the Straw Hats attempt octopus hunting before discovering a barrel in the middle of the ocean. After opening the barrel, with fireworks launched from it, the Thousand Sunny gets thrown into the foggy Florian Triangle where it encounters a ruined ship with a living skeleton on it. As the skeleton introduces himself as Brook, Luffy immediately asks him to join the crew. Brook explains that he was a pirate musician before being killed alongside his shipmates when they were attacked. Though the revive fruit he ate prior brought him back to life, it took his disembodied soul a year to find his body, which has decayed within that period of time. When everyone noticed Brook's lack of a reflection, the skeleton reveals that his shadow stolen and cannot enter sunlight without being destroyed. For that reason, admitting his joy to be around others after a very long time of solitude, Brook turns down Luffy's offer to both join his crew and offers to play for the Straw Hats while he is able to enjoy their company. But a ghost suddenly appears in the galley, and the Straw Hats find out from a frightened Brook that the barrel they found prior was a trap as they find themselves targeted and on the Ghost Isle Thriller Park. Brook bids farewell to the Straw Hats and leaps overboard, revealing that the lightness of his body allows him to dash across the ocean's surface. Nami, Usopp, and Chopper sail out to explore the island using the Minimary 2, before ending up getting knocked onto land. After fleeing the Cerberus that is a third fox, they encounter Hilden, a vampiric creature who offers to take them to the mansion of Dr. Hogback. They traverse through the forest of Thriller Park, Chopper revealing Dr. Hogback to be a famous surgeon, but after he disappeared, they are attacked by a platoon of zombies that drive them towards the direction of the manor. While immediately hospitable, despite the manners of his female assistant Victoria Sindri, Hogback starts acting strange after it is mentioned that Brook has arrived on the island. Meanwhile, the Thousand Sunny gets caught in a giant spiderweb. Hogback frightens Chopper by insisting that no one is allowed in his laboratory. As Nami takes a shower musing her thoughts on their situation, she finds herself restrained by an invisible man in the shower, and the figure fleeing when Usopp and Chopper manage to drive him off. The invisible man meets with Hogback and the ghost, referred as Perona, to discuss what to do with the Straw Hats. The rest of the crew set foot on Thriller Bark, Luffy taming the Cerberus as the group encounter more zombie creatures and the other trio attempt to leave the manor, but they instead find themselves surrounded by the surprise zombies. While evading them upon finding a secret passage, they discover the truth about Victoria Sindri being a starlet who died long ago. They eventually find the door to Hogback's laboratory, observing the scientist from outside before they are found by a mysterious samurai zombie who sounds like Brook. Meanwhile, Luffy's group are ambushed by ghosts who briefly made them depressed before they reach the graveyard where they are ambushed by the zombies. After beating the zombies, planting them into the ground upon learning they ambushed their crewmates, Luffy's group encounter an old man who pleads for their help in regaining his stolen shadow. He reveals his shadow and those of his fellow castaways was stolen by Gecko Moria, whom Robin explained to be one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Luffy agrees to help as he and his group reach the manor, learning that Thriller Park is actually a giant pirate ship. Inside the manor, though furious to find the trio in his lab after they were knocked in by the general zombie Ryuma. Hogback sees no point in being upset as it is almost midnight and Absalom rallies the zombies together while the negativity-inducing ghosts converge into their master, a gothic Lolita-style ghost princess named Perona. Gecko Moria, a giant-like man, is awoken and informed of the Straw Hats' arrival before declaring the start of the night hunt. The trio are locked inside a coffin while Luffy and the others enter the mansion and defeat the surprise zombies with ease, but Sanji goes missing. So they force Oinkshuk to act as their guide by taking him with them. While the zombies of Thriller Park celebrate the start of the night raid, Absalom awakens the other general zombies to handle the Straw Hats. He is then accosted by Lola, a zombie warhog obsessed with making him her husband. After learning that he's chosen Nami to be his bride, Lola sets her sights on the navigator. The trio manage to escape their coffin and find themselves surrounded by animal zombies, including a bizarre penguin bulldog zombie named Anup who talks and acts a lot like Sanji. The other Straw Hats meanwhile, discover a hallway lined with suits of armor, and realize that Zoro is now missing as well. As Perona makes her way to the Thousand Sunny to get the Straw Hats' treasure, Absalom attempts to stop Lola from hunting Nami, who realizes Anup's uncanniness to Sanji. Luffy, Robin, and Frankie are lured by Oinkchuk into a room where they are forced to face an army of armored general zombies, and Luffy's route is blocked by Jigoro, who acts much like Zoro. He is captured by the forces, with Frankie and Robin surrounded by both sides by the generals and a massive monkey spider named Tar Alan. Despite Absalom's attempts to halt Lola and abduct Nami to be her bride, both intents failed as the latter flees from Lola with Usopp and Chopper unable to slow the warthog zombie down. While the wild zombies disrespected his orders for them to not harm Nami, Absalom puts the lot in their place while venting his bad mood on Usopp by blasting him into a wall for his insolence. At the same time, Frankie and Robin, by some time against the Tar Alan and the general zombies by destroying the bridge to trap the zombies in the courtyard, and Robin flies them to the area of the castle behind Tar Alan. As Tar Alan was about to pursue them, Brook suddenly falls from the sky. When Usopp and Chopper are unable to halt Lola, Nami manages to quell the warthog's bloodlust by claiming to be a male crossdresser while encouraging her to take more violent steps in getting Absalom's affections. But when Absalom manages to evade Lola, the trio hide inside Perona's servant Kumasi, who is unable to reveal the pirate's location. They then overhear Absalom and Perona talking about being summoned by Moria, as he obtained an ideal shadow for his ultimate special zombie, Luffy. Meanwhile, after their enemy used his webs to reach them, Frankie gets the upper hand against Tar Alan until Robin is immobilized by the spider mice, the ones behind the abductions of Sanji and Zoro. Brook jumps up to help the two pirates, promising to tell them the full story while easily defeating Tar Alan. After defeating Tar Alan and releasing his shadow soul from within, Brook explains to Robin and Frankie the truth that the zombies of Thriller Park are actually corpses animated by shadows taken by Gecko Moria from his victims via the power of his shadow fruit. Meanwhile, Moria meets with the rest of the Mysterious Four, as well as the hidden Straw Hats in Kumasi, where he uses his powers to steal Luffy's shadow to use his special zombie. With Luffy's shadow, Moria and his followers head into the freezer holding his ultimate special zombie that he believes will help him gain power in the new world, the massive ancient warrior known as Ors. At the same time, Brook parts ways from Frankie and Robin after giving further crucial advice regarding the zombies, and answering Frankie's request, so he can go forth to accomplish his own goal, defeating the zombie Ryuma and reclaiming his shadow from the samurai fencer. With Usopp, Chopper and Nami bearing witness, Moria implants Luffy's shadow inside the corpse of Ors. Within moments, the massive zombie comes to life with 3 straw hats discovered by Moria's gang. Luckily, Ors immediately displaying aspects of Luffy's personality by yelling out for food, and the 3 straw hat pirates escape in midst of the giant's revival. However, they do not get far as Nami is abducted by Absalom for the marriage he plans for her, while Usopp and Chopper are left to fend for themselves against numerous platoons of zombies before being rescued by Frankie and Robin. Brook confronts Ryuma, recalling his time on Thriller Park 5 years prior, and his first battle with him and how he lost to a zombie with his own shadow. Ryuma mocks Brook for being so careful about his afro, and the two engage in another battle. Ors meanwhile continues to exhibit Luffy's personality traits as he devours most of Thriller Park's food while declaring his desire to be king of the pirates. Usopp, Chopper, Robin and Frankie return to the Sunny, discovering their ship had been ransacked before waking up Luffy, Zoro and Sanji. After informing the three about their current status and Nami's abduction, Brook reveals to Frankie that he and his crew made a promise to return to Reverse Mountain where they left a valuable friend 50 years ago, and the Straw Hats are astonished to find that friend Brook referred to is the whale Laboon. They tell the rest of the crew how they got to meet him as they start their new journey, while Brook reflects on his promise to return to Laboon. Luffy declares his intention to make Brook a part of their crew, and the Straw Hats prepare to counterattack the forces of Thriller Park in order to reclaim their stolen shadows and Nami. Sanji is joined by Robin to save her. Frankie and Zoro decide to back up Brook against Ryuma, while Luffy intends to directly defeat Gecko Moria himself. At that time, as Ors explores the mast of Thriller Park, Hogback is informed of the Straw Hats mounting an assault and livid that Absalom removed the general zombies from the field to be his wedding guests. While Hogback receives Moria's permission to take command of Absalom's zombie servants. Having 2 enforcers in mind, Perona uses her negative hollows to stop Luffy and Sanji in their tracks. But before Perona can get the rest, Oars falls from the mast onto the stairs, cutting the crew off as they fall down what they thought was a wall. Luffy continues on to take on Moria while Chopper and Robin remain behind to take on Hogback, who sicks Jigoro and Inup on them. After Oars runs off with a new pirate hat from his destruction, his actions disrupting Abalsam as his wedding to Nami is almost complete, and the rest of the crew end up in Perona's room where she uses her negative powers on them. But Usopp reveals that he's immune to her attacks due to his negative personality, staying behind to take on the Ghost Princess while the others go ahead. As Usopp continues to stand up to Perona's negative hollows while wiping out wild zombies, Brook is greatly overpowered by Ryuma, who was about to defeat the skeleton until Zoro arrives. Meanwhile, Oars continues to cause chaos on Thriller Bark, forcing Absalom to send his entire general zombie audience to stop him. But Abalsam learns that Oars annihilated all of the general zombies with a Gatling before Sanji arrives, Luffy having found Gecko Moria and expressing his intent to beat him up. As Luffy finds himself facing Gecko Moria's animated shadow doppelman while attempting to attack Moria, Usopp manages to dispatch the wild zombies and chases after a frightened Perona with Kumasi chasing after him. Though Absalom initially believed Sanji to not be a threat as he easily dispatched Inup, he is shocked at the pirate able to actually do harm to his heavily modified body. Having placed Nami's unconscious body on a pew, Sanji explains that he has more of a beef with Absalom besides his actions against the women in his crew. Beating Absalom when he refused to reveal he has been using firearms, Sanji reveals that he knows Absalom's invisibility is due to the clear fruit which he wanted for his own reasons. As Sanji defeats Absalom, Luffy managed to get through Doppelman to land a hit on Gecko Moria with his gum stamp. At the same time, losing sight of Perona, Usopp finally manages to give Kumasi the slip before finding a more confident Perona floating in mid-air out the window. Usopp is forced to go through a gauntlet of Perona's Horo powers, including an untouchable body passing right through him and creating explosive mini-hollows that slowly rip away at his stamina and body. Temporarily turning into Sniper King to finally dispatch Kumasi, Usopp is forced up against a desperate wall until he finally realizes Perona's sudden change. Usopp uses one of his attacks to destroy a nearby wall, revealing Perona's body lying helplessly in her bedroom. Having deduced that Perona used her Horo powers to project her spirit, Usopp attempts to fire an attack at it, but he misses with Perona producing a special hollow bomb to hold Usopp while she returned to her body. He uses an impact dial to absorb the explosive force, using it to take out the wild zombie hippo gentleman with some injury as consequence. Usopp then reveals that he actually fired an adhesive on Perona's body, beating her by scaring the trapped girl with toy cockroaches and an inflatable 10-ton hammer. As Chopper begins to notice Jigoro and Inup acting less like Zoro and Sanji, Oars undergoes the same transition and makes his way back to Gecko Moria. Meanwhile, Zoro and Ryuma's fight is getting intense as Brook tells Frankie that Ryuma is actually fighting for real. Neither Zoro, nor Ryuma, can gain any advantage over the other, as they keep matching the other's attack. Their attacks quickly destroy the lab, forcing them to escape the room and continue their fierce duel on the roof. As Brook watches on, he realized that Ryuma was holding back in their fights. As the entire roof collapses to the ground below, Zoro finally defeats Ryuma using a technique which sets him ablaze. Staggering while throwing his sword Shunsui to Zoro as acknowledgement of his opponent's skills. He collapses in a bout of flames and Brook's shadow is finally returned to him. Zoro acknowledges Ryuma's skill as a swordsman and says he wishes he could have met Ryuma before he died and agrees to forget the outcome of their fight. Chopper and Robin are outmatched by Jigoro and Inup, whose personalities lost most semblance to Zoro and Sanji. Chopper tells Hogback that he had once respected him but does not anymore after realizing the true nature of his experiments. But Hogback, revealing that his research was only for his benefit, insists his zombies are alive thanks to him, then tells his story of how he met Sindri and fell in love with the performer. But both the revelation of Sindri having a fiancé and her accidental death on stage made negative impacts on Hogback as he is approached by Moria. He agreed to join his cause on the condition that he can revive her as zombie, and admits that the zombified Sindri lack her original personality, but he only desired her beauty and assumes she is happy to be alive. This infuriates Chopper as he refuses to allow Hogback to continue making everyone suffer, and the scientist orders Sindri to kill the intruders so he can use their corpses in his experiments. Though Sindri is revealed to have modified superhuman strength, is nearly exposed after Chopper yells that real humans have freedom. When Hogback orders Jigoro and Inup to kill everyone to protect Sindri, the two zombies ended up fighting each other before Robin tricks Hogback into ordering the two to jump out the tower. With Chopper intending to beat Hogback to a bloody pulp, the scientist orders Sindri to buy time for him to escape. But everyone is surprised to see a tearful Sindri as she revealed she could not move. Elsewhere, Oars finally returns to Moria's side. With Oars now a fully obedient zombie, Gecko Moria takes his leave while instructing the giant to hunt down the Straw Hat pirates whose wanted posters are sewn on his arm. Oars attacks Luffy before he escapes to chase after Moria. Hogback without Sindri's conflicted support tries to run away, only to caught by Chopper as Robin helps him set up a suplex before Oars's attack smashed through the ceiling. Hogback then ends up being crushed under Oars's foot before the giant crushes into the chapel as Absalom takes advantage of Sanji's shock to spirit Nami away. Robin and Chopper meet up with Usopp as they run out of the mansion while Oars enters the courtyard calling the Straw Hat crew out. As Absalom makes another attempt to finalize his marriage to Nami, the other Straw Hats are fretting over Oars hunting them all down. He assumes he is to kill the Straw Hats and attack Sanji and smack him into a building. Oars is about to crush Sanji when Usopp uses his fire star to set the zombie's head on fire, only to provoke him as Zoro and Frankie attempt to fight him. He then overpowers everyone before destroying bridge where they are standing. Elsewhere, Luffy's continued pursuit of Moria leads him out of the manor and into the forest. Absalom attempts to once more seal his marriage to Nami with a kiss before she regains conscious. Lola arrives at that time, telling Nami to leave while pretending to attack her before Absalom, briefly caught off guard, knocks the zombie out and a furious Nami intent to avenge her friend. She manages to win due to a combination of Absalom's injuries and delusion. Meanwhile, as Luffy continues chasing Moria, Perona decides to leave on the Thousand Sunny after being told of Oars rampaging through the courtyard. But as he starts to search the manor for the remaining Straw Hats, the ones he just defeated have get back up. After being updated by Lola, Nami decides to find her crew after helping herself to Thriller Park's treasure, but she instead finds two of Perona's subordinates. Meanwhile, as Brook heads to the kitchen for some salt, the Straw Hats attempt a docking maneuver by hanging on to Frankie in order to form a giant robot warrior, but it fails when Robin refuses to participate in what she considers very embarrassing. They combine their strengths to get Oars off balance and cause him to fall to the ground. Elsewhere, Perona's subordinates load the treasure and food onto the Thousand Sunny when they see the mysterious bear-like figure who requests for Gecko Moria. Taking advantage of several weaknesses, including his stupidity and similarities to Luffy, the Straw Hats continue to wear away at him despite his continued persistence. While the others were intending to hold off Oars until Luffy takes out Gecko Moria, Zoro intends to fight the giant to test his new sword Shusui. Meanwhile, after Nami gained interrogated intel that Perona is taking the Thousand Sunny, she arrived to confront the girl as the mysterious figure makes his presence known. Perona recognizes the figure as Bartholomew Kuma of the Seven Warlords of the Sea. He requests for Moria before he is forced to make Perona disappear with his unloved hand due to her defiance. Displaying his unnatural speed to Nami while asking of Luffy's ties to Ace, Kuma takes his leave while telling her of his choice to be here. Elsewhere, realizing he caught Doppelman, Luffy finds out that he has been chasing after Moria's shadow the entire time. Despite Usopp's attempts to reason him about fighting Oars, Zoro explains that their captain has most likely been tricked by now and that getting his shadow back is his first priority. As Zoro finds his 108 caliber Phoenix has gained a stronger variation from his newly obtained sword, everyone realizes that Oars's tempering with Thriller Park has moved the ship out of the Florian Triangle and into the clear night sky. Meanwhile, after ditching Luffy in the forest, Moria's shadow returns to its master as he is meeting with Kuma. Kuma proceeds to explain of Blackbeard becoming the newest member of the Warlords while give Moria advice from the world government to not underestimate the Straw Hats as Crocodile had. Furious at the comment, Moria refuses Kuma's offer to help him as he leaves his deal with the Straw Hats himself. Later entering the cockpit installed in Orz's stomach, Moria's presence confirms Zoro's suspicions while making it hard for them to fight Orz with the remaining 30 minutes of night left. Usopp runs to the kitchen to gather more salt to purify Orz, but Moria had Orz strike at Usopp while destroying the passage to the kitchen. A healed Brook saves Usopp and brings the Straw Hats a large bag of salt, but with Moria's guidance, Orz is better able to counter the Straw Hats. Frankie is knocked unconscious after a failed attempt to fire himself at Orz, and Nami arrives and joins the battle. Orz demonstrates that he can somehow stretch his limbs, and elsewhere, Luffy meets up with the rolling pirates and their captain Lola the Proposer, whose shadows have been stolen by Moria. Lola has her crew plant all the shadows they captured into him in order to multiply his fighting strength and grant him new skills so that he can defeat Moria. The result is a monstrous version called Nightmare Luffy, that proceeds to reach his crew before the shadows leave his body in 10 minutes. Moria explains that he is using his ability Shadow Revolution to manipulate Orz's body by distorting the giant's shadow, and Orz voicing his intent to fight the Straw Hats personally. Brook offers to help the Straw Hats, talking Usopp into firing him out of Kuwagata with Robin and Nami's support to land effective damage on Orz's right shoulder. But the giant quickly retaliates, taking Brook out while destroying the tower he crashed in. Robin attempts to use her power on Moria, but he uses his own powers to switch places with his doppelman so he can steal her shadow from behind. Sanji attempts to attack Moria, only for the villain to switch back into Orz's cockpit. Orz knees Zoro into a wall before apparently stomping Usopp to death. He then tries to stomp Nami, only for her and Usopp to be saved by Nightmare Luffy before fighting Orz. While the rolling pirates take the unconscious Straw Hats to safety, Nightmare Luffy overpowers Orz to the point of knocking out before sending Orz flying before the shadows leave his body. Orz recovers from his attack and Luffy is joined by his revived crew as they act out a final attack. As Brook takes Luffy to the stop of the main mast, Nami uses her rain tempo to drench the zombie to be frozen in place by the low-temper cannon Frankie and Usopp built. Zoro and Sanji then proceed to ensnare Orz in a chain and straighten out his spine so a thrown Luffy can use giant bazooka in third gear to completely shatter it. With dawn approaching within minutes, the rolling pirates deem all is left is wake up Moria and force him to restore their shadows. But a furious Moria emerge from Orz's cockpit ranting that Luffy's crew is not strong enough for what lies in the new world. Moria then transforms into a giant monster by using his Shadow's Asgard ability to absorb all 1,000 shadows stored in the zombies on Thriller Park. Luffy proceeds to attack him in second gear, but Moria overwhelms him. With the rolling pirates calling out to their shadows weakening Moria, Luffy used both second and third gears at once to defeat Moria with his attack Jet Shell. Though the shadows are released, Moria's collapse causes the sunlight to hit the unconscious Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Robin, and the rolling pirates as they are all set ablaze. They regain their shadows at the last second along with the rest of Moria's victims. As Hogback informs Absalom of their leader's defeat, the Straw Hats surround the still unconscious Luffy with Usopp worried that Luffy might hurt himself from facing stronger enemies in the future. As the rolling pirates offer to lead Nami to Moria's treasure, she remembers Kuma before seeing him on the collapsed tower. Contacting his superiors via transponder Snail, Kuma receives orders from the world government to kill the Straw Hats and everyone else on Thriller Park to prevent Moria's defeat from becoming public. After taking out some of the rolling pirates with a strange move that sends several people flying backwards, Kuma turns his attention to Zoro and reveals that he has eaten the paw fruit, and shows his ability to repel attacks, move considerable distances almost instantly and repel the air to attack his opponents. Zoro is quickly outmatched, while Sanji and Usopp's attempts to help him are rendered futile by Kuma's hard body and ability to block projectiles. Kuma then creates a giant paw print that he compresses, offering all the pirates a chance to survive if they turn over Luffy, but they all refuse and Kuma detonates his paw print, devastating Thriller Bark. With almost everyone on the island is knocked out in the blast, Kuma is about to grab Luffy only to be attacked by Zoro. But upon reaching his limits, He learns that Kuma is a cyborg-like being called a pacifista who was created by the advanced science of the world government's leading scientist Dr. Vegapunk. Zoro attempts to offer his own life to Kuma to save Luffy, and Kuma agrees in return for Zoro to subject himself to a paw print holding the extracted pain his captain went through in fighting Moria and Oars. Though warned that it would kill him in the most antagonizing way possible, Zoro accepts. Once the deal is complete, Kuma leaves while remarking the loyalty Luffy inspires in his crew. And as the pirates all come to surprisingly energetic from having his wounds extracted, Sanji finds Zoro as he miraculously survived his near-death experience, and when asked about it, he simply responds with, "Nothing happened." Hogback and Absalom escape Thriller Park with the unconscious Moria. The next day, the Straw Hats celebrate their victory over Moria, but do not know why Zoro is so badly wounded. Sanji hears the story from the Risky brothers, but prevents them from telling anyone else, saying it would trouble Luffy greatly to hear that Zoro suffered for his sake. Luffy tells Brook that Laboon is alive. Brook recalls his past, when the whale Laboon started following his pirate ship and befriended the crew. When they headed toward the Grand Line, they had no choice but to leave Laboon behind because of the danger the sea would present to him. Brook and his captain convinced Laboon to stay behind, promising that after they traveled through the entire Grand Line and he grew strong enough to follow them, they would come back and bring him on their adventures, but they were unable to fulfill the promise. Brook recalls the Rumbar pirates' journey through the Grand Line, where they faced many dangers but still managed to enjoy themselves. The captain contracted an illness and attempted to leave the Grand Line through the calm belt with the other infected crew, leaving Brook in charge of the remaining pirates. The journey continued until some powerful enemies defeated the Rumbar pirates in the Florian Triangle, fatally poisoning them. As they were dying, they sang Binks's Brew one last time, recording it in a tone dial in the hopes that Brook would revive with his devil fruit power and deliver the shell to Laboon. Back in the present, Brook silently hopes Laboon will wait just a little longer for his return and tells Luffy that he is glad to be alive and asks if he can join the crew, which Luffy approves of. All the Straw Hats are shocked, but they nevertheless welcome him in. 2 days later, Usopp and Frankie make a grave for the dead Rumbar pirates, and Zoro lays the broken Yubashiri at the grave. Nami gets a Vivre card from Lola, which points the way to Lola's mother, a pirate in the New World. Luffy takes out the piece of paper he received from Ace, which is also a Vivre card, and learns that as it is burning and shrinking, Ace's life is in danger. Believing that Ace can get out of trouble on his own, Luffy decides to head onward rather than go to rescue him, and the Straw Hats sail away from Thriller Park. As Luffy and his crew sail away, 3 enormous and mysterious figure appears in the fog looking over Thriller Park. Sengoku complains about Kuma sparing the Straw Hats, but Garp is confident that they will not talk about defeating Moria. The group reach on the other side of the world as where they entered the Grand Line, and briefly reflect on how far they have come and how far they have to go. Robin, Brook and Luffy investigate with the shark submerged to see how they could get to Fishman Isle, but are unable to go deep enough to find any clues. A sea rabbit attacks them, and after they defeat it, it spits out a mermaid named Cammy and her starfish pet, Papagu. They introduce themselves to the Straw Hats, who then later find out that their fishman friend has been kidnapped by Iron Mask Duval and the Macro Gang. The Straw Hats set out to rescue him, and are attacked by Duval's henchmen, the Flying Fish Riders. When they recognize the Straw Hats' flag, they retreat and inform Duval that the man who ruined his life is approaching, and he replies that he can't wait to have his revenge.